stars be with you.
The Gemini full moon is brewing. Can you feel it? Welcome to the Energetic Principles podcast. My name's Melissa LaFera, and I'm an astrologer, tarot consultant, all-around creative from San Diego, California. And today we are going to be talking about the full moon in Gemini, which will be exact on December 15th, 2024 at 1:01 a.m. Pacific time. And so this is a mercurial full moon. And Gemini full moons can have all types of tricks up their sleeve, and especially with this one because we have Mercury in Sagittarius stationing direct from its retrograde cycle the very same day of the full moon. So there is a culmination, there's a turning of events, there's an emerging from mercurial subjects that is happening during this lunation, and it was seated under the full moon, the new moon in Sagittarius, which was square Saturn. It had a lot of juice to it, and this is that culmination point of Jupiterian and mercurial subject matter, which is big because Mercury is the power of the mind, right? And many of us have heard it so much that it's probably a cliche, change your mind, change your life, direct your intentions, say your affirmations. But there really is something to it because what we run in our heads, that constant script, or what I'm starting to think of as code, is really the basis point of our reality. So what are you thinking? What are you thinking right now? What were you thinking yesterday? What do you think you're going to think? Well, maybe don't think about it too much because Mercury can have us overanalyzing things. But there's something to be said right now about what is on our mind and what we are entertaining mentally, and especially from a big picture perspective, from a visionary perspective, because right now Mercury stationing direct is all about the collection of information. We're getting new data. We have new ideas to play with, and why I'm deeming this program endless possibilities. There's so much before us in the mental plane of what it is that we could potentially manifest or move away from, too. We have to remember that Mercury is the planet that really changes reality. It makes exits, it makes entries, it shifts. That's the whole purpose of Mercury being the psychopomp, right? It's the only planet that can go between the three realms of existence, which is essentially, the underworld, our earthly reality, and then the idea of the heavens, or where the gods reside. And so Mercury takes us from these different places. So there's this mutable quality, right? Mutable is double-bodied. It's about living in two places at the one time, whether that's literally speaking, but a lot of times it can be, especially when we're talking about fire and air right now, because the axis is Gemini and Sagittarius that's being lit up, and Pisces, which we'll talk about here in a second. But this is the liminal space of the mind and the spirit, essentially. And so we might be dancing between those two conceptual realities. And what we really want to put out in life going forward, because these are outward signs, being air and fire. So this is all about external manifestation. So there is a bit of a wild card with this full moon because we have Neptune squaring it. And so there is this, full moon square Neptune, especially when Mercury is stationing direct, can be a little chaotic. It can be confusing. It can be overwhelming too. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you feel it all on the full moon, because a big aspect of this, when we think about the waxing cycle of the lunation, right? The waxing cycle of the Sagittarius new moon, we feel all this up until the full moon. So this might be kind of a comedy of errors going on. Like, I noticed in my Buy Nothing group, a woman was giving away generously, in the name of Sagittarius season, tickets to the zoo. She can walk 2 people in because she has a season pass, and she's going to do it every day, right? The generosity of the heart. And then coordinating all those people and all those messages, and it can just be like, what I get myself into. So there's a lot of sort of like just buzzing around and maybe like hitting some things that don't quite work out, having to go with the flow here. And I think that is a big part of this full moon too, is really the need for fluidity in general, whether that is with the situation where you're trying to secure tickets to the zoo or with the greater concepts of your life and your beliefs and your big picture. Because if we are in mutable territory, Neptune can help dissolve. Neptune can help get us to a more spiritual place, a compassionate place, an acceptance place. And so if we are feeling stuck in what is old, or we're recycling belief patterns that don't really do anything for our lives anymore, this is what hinders that evolution of our consciousness. And so consciousness wants to be fluid. So how do we challenge ourselves and activate this sense of fluidity within maybe uncertainty or possibility? I feel like uncertainty, possibility, and that unknown and the mystery of Neptune is really sort of the magic of life. And so how can we just surrender to where life wants to take us right now and dream within that, right? Because I think there's a very potent dream states that are happening and potentialities to kind of sort through. And maybe not all of them will be viable, but that doesn't mean you can't project that into the consciousness field and see where you end up, right? Another big thing about this full moon is that Mercury is our the messenger. This is about information, about gathering, collecting, talking, discussing. And there can be very potent conversations that are coming up right now, or just information that you read, or if you're like heads in a book and all of a sudden you see that one line that shifts something within you. We are gathering, we are collecting, and we need mental flexibility around what it is that we take in. Are we listening? Mercury likes to talk. Gemini is not always known to be a listener. So there is this point of how do we observe and how do we listen and how do we witness what it is we take in, rather than just like maybe flushing it through, chewing it in, and then spitting it back out. So back to that fluidity, that flexibility, especially in the mental state, and to really get excited about some of the things that are coming in your mind right now. Now, all signs are different, right? And so I'm trying something new this broadcast, because I hear it's popular on the YouTubes, is to give a little information for each sign. So I put together a chart for each of the 12 signs, and also pulled some cards. One card from our Tarot of Her deck that I created with Sarah Jane Lambert, and one card from the Poesis Oracle, which I just love, by Andrea Wan. Fabulous illustrations here. So let's start with Aries. So keep in mind, we're kind of juggling this Gemini Sag placement, and we have the sort of curveball of Neptune going on. And I will, one thing I want to state before I continue here actually with Aries, is that one of the big things with Mercury stationing direct right now is that it has been in a dance with Jupiter and Saturn. And the Jupiter-Saturn square is moving to perfect here, the second square, which is a big movement. This is all about, once again, so those changing, fluxing realities of how do we grow? What are we establishing? Where do we put up boundaries, Aries? And what... like, how do we shift our reality to this next point of really where we've been growing since 2020? This is a kickoff point of the last 4 to 5 years. And so that's why this lunation is so important too, because it highlights the moving pieces of what these bigger chapters of our life look like. All right, so with Aries, we have the full moon in Gemini in the 3rd house with the sun in the 9th house, and then that Neptune energy in the 12th house. So these are all cadent houses, which means that you might be busy, busy, busy. You know, there's a lot of going back and forth, but you might be mentally busy. You might be writing a lot. You might be moving a lot. The mind's active. You're running around. You're focused on expanding your life and how you're really in big picture mode. And really, how can you work your immediate environment to take advantage of what it is that you have on your mind and you want to put into place, what you're really focused on. It's not necessarily the power center, right? This is more of like that shifting, mutable flexibility space. But when your head's in the right place, when your overall mental like outlook of your world is in the right place, you can really set yourself up for dynamic movements to come. Now, the Neptune business, I think, is where we're seeing the cards of the 5 of stems in its waxing crescent phase, and then the boundary card. And so this Neptune might be saying that there are things you have to sacrifice, or there are maybe some disappointments in life, and more of this looking at what hasn't worked, or with the 5 of stems or 5 of cups, this is all about, 3 cups have spilled, but 2 are still standing. So how do you work with what it is that still has potential, and maybe set a boundary around what doesn't? It could also be energetic boundaries, because when we're running around and we're saying yes to things and we're juggling this and juggling that, we might have to disappoint some people, or because we can't do it all. So we have to set boundaries in life. And it could be a wonderful time to clear out old grievances and griefs that weigh heavy on your soul and have been part of your processing on like a mental or belief realm. And so creating a boundary around that so that you can kind of explore why that narrative is there, change that emotional focus, and then create a new container to where your outlook and your mental functioning is not running that script. All right, so for the Tauruses, Taurus and Taurus rising, we have the full moon in Gemini in the 2nd house, the sun in the 8th, and Neptune in the 11th. And so we are in succedent houses. And we also have the Temperance card and in the waxing crescent phase, and the womb card. And so right away, well, first off, 2nd house, 8th house matters. These are all about resource houses. And so what are you invested in? Your time, your energy, your inspiration. Like if your inspiration is not getting play and not being valued by yourself, and putting your, energy to what really fires you up and lights you up, then this is the perfect time to shift so that you are working in those areas of your life, and you're spending that time and money. Perhaps you might be investing in things like actually buying things to pursue what it is you're talented and gifted at. And it's also about getting clever with your money, especially if it's going in and out. You might find, especially in the Mercury retrograde cycle, like maybe you were dealing with some debts or some budgeting or loans or just earnings. Maybe you're like, okay, I got to figure out how am I going to make more money? What's the big picture around this? And so there might be a breakthrough of sorting that out, and maybe getting in a collaborative space with other people, because there's energy around shared resources that can help you bring in more, or at least facilitate ideas or connections or discussions that can grow your money there. And really, it could be tied to an overall vision that you have on more of an aspirational level with that Neptune in the 11th house. because you have big dreams, right? There's something is lighting you up, and maybe a community space. Maybe it has to do with more of a collective dream, or how you want to bring your gifts and resources to a broader space. And it could also be where maybe you're sacrificing for a group or a cause, and then it hurts you in a financial way. Or there's some sort of like financial aspect that's tied into groups, or even friendships or networks. Or maybe how can you expand your network in a way that helps you bring in more resources? And so I think with all this, it's playing with new ideas of what your self-worth and your value look like. And it's not anything that is happening on a fast pace, right? Because we're talking about the Temperance card here and womb energy. This is all about patience and gestation. So even though there's like a lot of hyper energy around this full moon, there's still, in perfect Taurus energy, there's still this need to take your time with things and have moderation. And so look at where you can balance and moderate in life, and also what it is you're cooking up, right? We think about gestation and womb energy, and so that's highly creative. All right, so Gemini, the stars of the full moon. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising here. So we've got a full moon in the first house, the sun in the 7th, and Mercury stationing in the 7th, and then Neptune in the 10th house. So these are angular houses. So that means the Geminis are lit up for this full moon. And so there could be this energy around independence and partnerships. What is it that you conceive your needs are, especially when you're on a journey with someone else? How do you work together with other people to be in a flexible place for your own needs, while still being able to be on the same page in a connection or a relationship? And then career can be fuzzy around all that. Like you might have big dreams for where you want to take your professional world or your just life direction in general. And it could be a very visionary zone, but it can be confusing. There could be just this shape-shifting reality around there. But I think having flexibility with the bigger plans in your life right now is so key, because look at these cards. We've got the Creatrix, which is also the Magician, right? This is the card of Mercury in the new moon phase. And then we got the Seek card. So really, I think there's a lot of magic at your fingertips right now that are connecting, you, other people, and your career life. But you're just in the starting out mode. Like this is a turning point to what you intend to create rather than being in full creation mode. So play with it, have fun, experiment with the ideas that are coming to you. And you don't have to commit to any one thing or another right now. It's really, I feel like it's more about like taking in sort of the inspiration and playing with it. At least in this moment in time. It might be very underground, I guess we could say, despite being a full moon. All right, so Cancers, fellow crabs like myself, Cancer risings. We have a 12th house full moon and a 6th house sun with Mercury stationing there, and then Neptune in the 9th. So we have another cadent house chart situation going on. So if you can't tell, all the cardinal signs are basically having a cadent full moon. And so a 12th house full moon is really about taking time out to potentially meditate and go to more of a spiritual place, which I don't know, we don't necessarily think about Gemini being the most spiritual sign. It's not to saying it's not, right? Gemini, it's like a busy bee, it's everywhere, it's doing this, it's doing that. But how can we still our mind and connect in with perhaps a work-life balance that we're looking for, or being inspired about our day-to-day reality and the energy that we're putting in to it. There might be a vision that helps to propel you to get clever about rearranging your schedule, your responsibilities, how you want to show up every day that makes you feel fired up, right? You need to be in Sag mode when you are interacting with your day-to-day reality. Like, this is all about expanding that narrative. How can you grow? But there may be that shift in that Neptunian space where you have to like jumble through paradoxical beliefs around growing and taking risks, right? Because we see fledgling of blooms in the almost disseminating phase here. And she is all about, taking risks and walking on the coals of life and engaging with the fire and being more spontaneous and taking inspirations that are just fledglings, right? And growing that fire, dancing with that fire. But we see that wound card. And sometimes we hold ourselves back, maybe because we have a mental script that's running that is like, oh no, I can't do that. Or there's all these other things. Or I tried that before and that doesn't work. And so why am I going to do it again? And so we think about the 12th house as being a place of enlightenment. Enlightenment does not come easy. Usually enlightenment has its source in our pain and our difficulties. So address where the wound is within you, how it affects your daily life and living the reality that you want, and expanding your life into the vision that you see, that there might have been something holding you back because you don't want to take the risk or are not open to like really going for something and trying something new. So I also want to say, like, this is also about maybe collecting yourself and working through some anxiety or turning the corner on anxiety, or having a fresh new take on it, because there's been a lot of activity in your 12th house with Jupiter in Gemini for the last how many months. So take your time to sort of breathe. Like, breath work would be so good right now, to sort of breathe and clear and really surrender, to get into that fluid state, to get in that inspiration, to get in that fiery state, because 2025 is going to have sparks and you're going to want to take advantage of them. All right, for the Leos and Leo risings, we have a full moon in Gemini in the 11th house, the Sun and Mercury stationing in the 5th, and Neptune in the 11th. Excuse me, not the 11th, the 8th. Totally different placements. So here we have succedent houses, right? And so this is somewhat of, there's a connection of like, how do you bring your passions and who you are and your creative spirit to the community or out into the world more. So this is a great time to take advantage of what your social life has to offer, to grow your networks and to have fun, but especially to lighten up, because there is this Neptune and also this Saturnian influence in your 8th house, which the 8th house can be a bit challenging when we think about this death and rebirth energy and these psychological depths and shifts. And so if you've been going through some heavy or harder times, this is your opportunity to lighten up and maybe change that narrative around how your life has shifted, and maybe more of the difficult spiritual stories and timelines and experiences that you've gone through, right? Because we see the 8 of stems here, the card of departure in the disseminating phase. And we see this card of soften. And so to me, there is this point where maybe you can fully begin to walk away. You might be walking away from friends or networks or connections that aren't part of your authenticity anymore, or what you want to be around, or doesn't have that support. And so maybe there's making a departure there. It could also be just making a departure from an emotional situation that has been weighing on you in a way that does affect the 11th and the 5th house energies, and you're softening into that. Like, it doesn't have to be so rigid or hard anymore. How do you melt into how your life is shifting and transitioning, and realize that this journey that you're on to move forward and find this more this authentic version of yourself that is all about joy and pleasure. Like, this is necessary to leave that state in order to, sort of melt into like this beautiful this beautiful scenario that really wants to happen to you, but you have to shift that Piscean zone and those more difficult feelings or emotions or potential grief around things. For the Virgos, Virgo and Virgo rising, we have another angular chart here. We've got a full moon in the 10th house, the sun and Mercury stationing in the 4th, and then Neptune in Saturn. And Saturn's now in the mix, right? In the 7th house here. And so this is about career, right? Or in just life direction. What are your goals, your ambitions in life? What are these ideas that are like swirling through your head and you're like, oh, I got possibilities here. I can make shifts here. I can have conversations here. I can share these ideas. And so there's a lot that maybe you've been bubbling up and gestating on in your inner realm. You know, when we think about 4th house energy, which can be home and family and ancestral in relating, but it can also be more of this private gestational piece where we're beginning something and we're inspired by something that's very personal to us. You know, sometimes it's about personal life and personal stories that then we bring to the surface to share with others, or that helps, like we are the messenger of, we can spread this word in a way, because I mean, if you're Virgo and Virgo rising specifically, you do have this sort of messenger vibe in the world, with Gemini being at the top of your chart. So what's those deep down inspirations? What's that message that you're bringing out in the world? And so there might be many options on the table for you right now that require endings, that lead to beginnings, that liminal space we're talking about. And there can be relationship aspects that are part of this too, that, maybe some relationships are dissolving or morphing into something different than what they looked like before, or maybe you're conceptualizing with other people and you can share a dream in a partnership that then translates in either your home or your public life. But either way, you're in a place where things are really moving for you. And we see that with the Emperor card, right? The Emperor and noise together. So the Emperor in the disseminating phase, the Emperor is all about logic and reason and being able to formulate and sculpt your life because you own your power and are able to sort of take that boss mode. But how do we do that? How do we have that control and sort of that like boundary consciousness when there's so much noise going around? So there might be the need to quiet some things, especially if it just gets too like, either in your head or around you, or just too much buzzing. Like, how do you create structure around chaos, I guess we could say. And there might be something too related with the authority figures where you might have to like speak your mind or speak your truth when it comes to dealing with someone who might be in charge of you. And so how do you work together with this person and dispel maybe that noise and anxiety that lived by not dealing with the situation? And so these are all just speculations, but either way, the wheel of fortune is turning for the Virgos and Virgo risings. So Libras, we have another cadent house here with a cardinal sign. And so we have a full moon in the 9th house, Mercury and stationing and the sun in the 3rd, and then Neptune in the 6th. And so there might be a lot of running around for the Libras too, because we're talking whenever the 3rd house and the 9th house, especially the 3rd house is involved, there's a lot going on, right? It's about short journeys. We're moving here, we're moving there, we're entertaining this, we're entertaining that, we're conversing here, we're conversing there. But there's a lot of energy that's more focused on the conceptualization of your big picture in life and your worldview, your belief systems, connecting back in with spiritual concepts or philosophical concepts. And so you might be trying to mentally grasp like this bigger picture of you, but how that fits into like just your day-to-day thinking or your script, right? There's something that might just need to shift there. And so you might have a lot of information or conversations coming to you that either you can double down where you're at, or you can start to be in that fluid space that I was talking about earlier, where you're like, well, wait, hold on. So I'm getting this information back to me. Am I really listening here? Am I taking that for what it is? Sirens going by. And then how do I work with that without necessarily dismissing it? You might feel really restless right now too, where a lot of things feel like they're engulfing you. Work could be one of those things, with Neptune and Saturn in the 6th house, or health issues. You might feel like, I need to get away. I need a short trip. I need to clear my mind, because you're open to growth right now. And so it can be hard to achieve when you're mired in your responsibilities. So maybe how can you shift that a little bit to give yourself that time and space? And so we see the 6 of Roots in the last quarter phase and a Harvest card. And so to me, this feels like the give and take energy of the 6 of Roots, right? It looks like we're a little bit more on the taking zone here. So you might want to look at what you have harvested, what you have in your fruit basket. How much can you give? How much can you take? Is it imbalanced in a way? Do you need to make shifts to just reorient those negotiations or those agreements with other people, or just how you interact with your own energy on a day-to-day basis? Because once again, we're living in this communicative and mental zone right now. And so this is all about shifting narratives and what that looks like to you. So you can feel more bountiful and like you have a bigger harvest and have your cup filled, versus maybe feeling like there's just a lot of energy that is taking right now. And so that might need to have a different shift in your belief and how you view your world, because sometimes it's that. And so we shift that thought, like this is always taking from me. And then we're like, oh no, but I'm grateful to give there. And then it doesn't take from you anymore. Or maybe there's a conversation that needs to be had. Like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I can't give this. Or maybe I would like to give that to you because you've been withholding and you want to be more generous there. So like I said, it's all up in the air as far as cadent houses go. It's like the running script that's in the background, that the next lunar cycle will be those dynamic periods. Scorpio risings, fellow Scorpio risings like myself, we are in succedent territory with that full moon in the 8th house, Mercury stationing and the sun in the 2nd, and then Neptune in the 5th. And so we're back to resource houses, much like Taurus rising, but we have more of an emphasis on shared assets and things like debts and loans and investments, and how do we come together and share ideas with one another. Sometimes what it is that we have to share and offer is the collaboration of ideas. And so there might be new ideas about how to make money, how to invest, how to acquire things, how to collaborate in something maybe that your heart is envisioning, with that 5th house energy with Neptune. Another thing that's important to remember, that with 8th house energy being highlighted on a full moon, is that 8th house can have things that are out of our control. Whether that thing is out of our control that influences us in some way, or we witness something that's happening to someone else and that just becomes part of our story because we're invested in them, you know. So I think maybe that might be some of the Three of Leaves energy in that first quarter phase coming up, where there can be maybe difficult conversations that come up, or difficult realizations, or things that we have to accept on a mental level so that we are not bothered by them or don't get chewed up in these mental loops that are just not helping the situation whatsoever. And so maybe that's where that Neptunian compassion and acceptance can come in, because there just might be challenging narratives, or maybe like a fight happens, whether it's to you or you witness it outside of yourself. And rather than going down that wormhole, how do you find the balance, right? We see this card of balance. And so it also makes me think about creative roles, right? Because there's so much energy in the fifth house space. And if your heart's invested in things, or taking creative routes, and where does maybe mental challenges over self-worth, or, investing in yourself and your talents, or maybe, there's, like I said, there's like a script that keeps running with that Three of Leaves energy, where it's like time to turn a corner on that because it's out of balance and it's not really helping propel the fun and the pleasure and the creative authenticity that you have to bring to this world. Or maybe just accepting a certain thing, like that avenue isn't going to work out. And so accepting that and coming back into balance does open you up to a place where you can be more fully present in creating what will have potential and what will be a heartfelt or spiritual manifestation going forward. But first you have to kind of come to terms with that. Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. So we have another angular chart here with the full moon in the 7th house of partnerships, and Mercury stationing in the sun in the 1st house. And then we also have Neptune and then Saturn down at the bottom of the chart in the 4th. And so there's a focus on partnerships of all kinds, not just romantic relationships, business partnerships, any one-on-one experience. People that we consider our enemies, right? Or that we have issues with. There can be just tension that is brought to the surface now that is part of like, how do we nurture a partnership? How do we communicate in, with other people? And how do we process that into our own journey? Because it's easy to project on other people too. So realizing that there's this growth element coming for you right now, especially as we see the growth card here, and we see the Ace of Leaves in that disseminating position, which is sort of this invoked force and this mental clarity. So you're definitely growing and expanding and kind of reaching for the sky, so to speak. But by doing so, this is firing new synapses for you in relation to the people that you encounter, the conversations you have, and then also your emotional foundation, what you feel on a very deep level, maybe a home or family experience, or childhood conditioning or childhood stories, or just that Pisces energy that can be sometimes overwhelming when it comes up. So there can be a lot that is surfacing for you to be able to grow and expand into the person that you're becoming, and even have more balance and more freedom with your relationships with other people, especially when everything's out in the open and well verbalized, right? You're growing here. So it's almost like take the lead. Take the lead, share your thoughts, open your mind to what is new, right? We just see a seedling here. The Ace of Leaves is the beginning of clarity. And so leave room, right? Because whatever this bottom of your chart action is with the home matter, with, tension around home and family or activation there's a potential for a visionary foundation of what, like the emotional platform that you stand upon, how that dictates how you come at life and how you work with other people. That's all shifting and changing, and there might be uncertainty around what that future path looks like or the journey that you're on. But know that you're headed in the right direction, especially when you open to new ideas and growth in general. Capricorn and Capricorn rising. So we have another cadent chart here with the moon, full moon in the 6th house, the Mercury stationing direct and the sun in the 12th house, and then Neptune over there in the 3rd. And so this is about an emphasis on your daily reality, your work, your health. Situations can come up that might have you scrambling in some way, right? There's a lot of like responsibilities on your plate, or juggling them, or even juggling the concept of what's yours to hold and what's not. And so there could be this feeling of anxiousness that comes up, which could be good to meditate or pull back and connect with a spiritual practice that helps you get in touch with, your bigger picture and those underlying inspirations, right? With that 12th house energy. So it's a lot of internalized movement that's going on for you right now. And with that, there can be uncertainty. There can be just the need to be flexible with life and what's coming at you. There can be literal things, especially with Neptune in 3rd, like appointment mix-ups, like all of a sudden, you had this scheduled out for how long, and then they cancel on you, or you get there, or you end up in traffic and then you're late. There's just these kind of curveballs that might not necessarily work in your favor. But life isn't always going to be like that. So we don't have to attach to that narrative. You might also be caught in, deep thought we see the 2 of Leaves here in the wax and gibbous phase and this illuminate card. And you can see her, she's hidden behind the leaves, and the card is indecision. And I loved labeling that indecision because, essentially Gemini is the card of the lovers, and we think about deciding factors, decisions that we make, paths that we go. And you might be at this juncture where you're entertaining, you're like, well, what does that actually look like? And it's not A or B. It's not black and white. There is this gray area that might have to come from more of an intuitive place, more from a 12th house place than this very logical, 6th house. These are the facts. This is what I'm doing. It's like, well, what do I sense and feel? You might be in the space where what's coming to you mentally and spiritually might have more questions than there are answers. And so I guess what we could say is resist the need for certainty right now. It's okay if you're not certain. It's more play with the ideas, connect with your intuition, see what's illuminated, and hold space for that as the story grows. And then the next lunation cycle will be angular, which will create more power for you. Aquarius and Aquarius rising. Well, we got a 5th house full moon, which tends to be some level of fun, right? We've got Mercury stationing in the sun in the 11th, and then we have Neptune and Saturn in the 2nd house. And so our succeedent houses are lit up. And you just might be following your joy right now. Your joy, what gives you pleasure, what you want to do creatively is lit up on your mind and your heart right now, especially if you're connecting with friendships or group or collaborations, networking, a cause that is bigger than yourself. There's this collaborative aspect that's coming through, and more of an aspirational aspect. It's like when you look at your big picture, what did your heart get lit up about? What thought keeps coming to you? And your heart is like, yeah, that sounds good. That is what to attach to right now. Now, some level of it might be having to do with money or possessions, where that could be a little bit of a sore spot, or maybe you're taking a risk there, or maybe that's like you got to put out more and you might be, unsure if you can manage that, or that just might be a side effect of following your heart and following your passion and your joy and these ideas that keep permeating in your mind, right? Because we see the Sage of Leaves in the new moon phase here. So you're coming into your power, especially from a clarity mindset of like, all right, this is what I see for my life. These are the challenges that I want to take on. I'm, boss perspective. I'm ready to do this. And it's just seeding. It's just starting, but it comes with the wound card. So maybe being in that place of power and owning that might bring up things that are difficult to deal with, or sore spots within yourself, especially if you're unsure of how the situation is going to turn out, or if there's going to be value around taking these risks and following this direction, because maybe it's like you're certain, but it's just the beginning of that, so there's no necessary proof yet, and so it can bring up the potential of old wounds that come through this place of knowing and trusting yourself, right? And yeah, just being in this place of like spiritual trust with what you're sensing right now, and doing that even if it brings up difficult things, right? Because sometimes to take your chances in life, you have to have faith that you're going to end up where you need to be. So have faith in the direction that you're going. All right, and last but certainly not least, we have Pisces energy, Pisces and Pisces rising. And so we have another angular power chart here. And so we have the full moon in the 4th house, Mercury stationing in the sun in the 10th house, and then Neptune and Saturn in the 1st house. And so Pisces, you've been going through some things, right? With Saturn and, Neptune for quite some time, but Saturn in your first, this is a whole 30-year cycle in the making, right? You're concretizing the person that you're going to become. No pressure. But this full moon does light up home and family situations, more private life stuff, your emotional foundation, old conditionings and narratives that you subscribe to, and maybe how new evidence is coming in to shift those in some way that didn't affect your career and your overall life direction and your goals and ambitions in life. And so you might be going through your own personal metamorphosis right now, so to speak. But it really is a time to dream and to entertain new ideas of what your future looks like on a personal inner space and level, and also in a professional view. Because who you were a couple years ago is not who you are today. And there is so much room for change and shifting. There's a lot of potential for you. And you might need to be on the go and be in 2 places at one time before anything concrete lands. Like you have to be in that liminal space. And I think maybe that's why we get the 9 of Blooms coming up in the waxing crescent phase, and also the Explore card. And so this is about this. I like to call this the hang in there baby card, where you just kind of got to hang in there because you're on a journey that's really is leading you somewhere, but it's going to take emotional strength. It's going to take that willingness to explore and see what's out there for you. It takes the moving through the idea that, oh gosh, if I do this, what's going to come down on me, or is another shoe going to drop? It's like, no, there doesn't need to be this defensive nature around it. Once again, we're in this fluid space where how can you hold on, garner that emotional strength, and really explore what life has to offer you, not only in where you rest your head and where, the foundation of your life, but also your career space and who you are in this world and in the public and how you want to grow and what your legacy might look like. You might be, exploring those, not a new goal. These could be old goals that haven't reached the culmination that you would like them to reach yet. But by exploring and opening to new potentiality and this building of this new character and this metamorphosis you're going through, it's like you're on your way, basically. All right. Well, that was a lot. I don't know if I've ever done that many. If so, it's been a long time. So yeah, this is a powerful full moon, just in the power of the mind and the thought processes. If it's all about shifting awareness. Where do you want your awareness to lie? Because that really is our power in life. As cliche as it sounds, like everything that we see around us, what we view through our eyes for the most part, is we are the internal processors of that. And so if you're not crazy about the processing, this is the time to rewrite your code, because big changes are happening. We're in Mars retrograde right now. Jupiter and Saturn are going to square again. 2025 has an immense lineup for us. Which you can watch 7 hours of content of Gray Crawford and I talking about all of 2025 if you would like to hear that. But it all starts with the mind. It all starts with this point of the shift of the awareness and the shifting of our concept of reality. So take advantage. Take advantage of what this full moon has to offer you. So I don't know if I said this in the beginning, but I probably, if I didn't, take what resonates, leave the rest, because only you know you best. And if you'd like a personal consultation to discuss, especially 2025, as it's a good time to get a year ahead consultation, you can go to energeticprinciples.com and book something there. Also, leave a comment. Let me know what's going on. If you're watching on YouTube, tell me what's going on in your full moon house there. Did you feel like anything that I said resonated? Do you want to add more to your experience? Because I would love to hear it. There's so many possible narratives, right? There's so many possible experiences that people could be going through right now that I obviously can't even say 1/1000th of the potentiality out there. But I would love to know what's going on with you. So share, like, subscribe, send this to a friend, leave a review if you listen to the podcast. It all helps me to be seen. All right. Well, I'm wishing you the best of full moons. Full moon in Gemini. Keep your head in a good place. And you will have the power to go with the flow and to surrender to life, right? That's so funny. If you surrender and you go with the flow, you're actually in your power. It sounds paradoxical, but it's true. It's true. All right, friends, well, take care out there. And as always, may the stars be with you.